Hi everyone, I'm going to tell you about one of my business failures that provides a lesson in psychological switching costs that's still very relevant today. One of the big ideas I have in my new book, Cumulative Advantage, is a new way to think about strategy. I call it the seam. Back in the day, a strategy was a 250-page document and a 5-year plan. And today, strategy is really about looking at what are your advantages. What are the resources that you can leverage, and how do you apply that to something that's shifting in the world today, a fracture in the status quo? Many years ago, I was a sales manager for a company that sold packaging materials, and one of my customers made these little aluminum cans. If you're in Europe, an aluminum can, the kind with the pop top, right? The problem was they had excess capacity. So that was our resource. We had to figure out, how do we leverage this to something that's going on in the world today? What problem can we solve? Well, I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and there was a big controversy where some crazy people were going into grocery stores, opening up boxes of condoms and poking the packages with needles to destroy the condoms. The grocery stores didn't know how to solve this problem. Everybody was panicked because these condoms were then unsafe. They needed a solution. I had one. I invented the condom. This is a real thing. It's a little aluminum can with a pop top, and it neatly holds 6 condoms. I called it the party pack. Now, what I learned was 95% of the entire condom industry was within 2 companies in Los Angeles. So in one day, I covered 95% of the condom industry, and the condom manufacturers were wild about the condom. They wanted samples. They wanted tests. So it looked like I had created momentum. We had this opportunity. We aligned it with a shift and a market need. The grocery stores were having all these problems, and it didn't work. It failed because once we did the tests, the grocery stores pushed back. Not because it wasn't a great idea, not because the timing was wrong or there wasn't a customer need. Even the price was okay. Here's why they pushed back. Because customers were accustomed to buying their condoms in a certain way. It was a box that was on a peg on a shelf. And the grocery store owners thought that they couldn't just make the psychological switch to buying condoms in a different way in a package that was normally associated with food. So everything seemed right. It seemed like a valid idea, but it was this psychological switching cost that we don't really talk a lot about in marketing. Here's another example. Google+. I think one of the big reasons why Google+ failed is because people only had the bandwidth for one social network. They had already psychologically committed to Facebook. Moving to Google+ would have been a psychological switching cost that was too high for many people to make. So it's still a relevant idea. And one of the things I think we need to be talking about sometimes in marketing, I think it explains a lot of consumer resistance in ways maybe we haven't really talked about before. So, moral of the story, I spent all that time learning the ins and outs of the condom business, and it didn't work because of psychological switching costs.